That dress, a simple design. The Blackwood family has never accepted anything less than extravagance. In the middle of the lavish engagement party, the insults landed squarely on the bride-to-be, who everyone believed was the family's new maid. While the groom, Julian, only forced a smile, unwilling to defend her, the crowd whispered, "A servant girl climbing high, she'll be cast aside soon." Everyone thought she would bow her head, accepting her role as an outsider. But none knew that with a single tap on her phone, the very $500 million contract the Blackwood family flaunted could be erased in an instant. Ava Martinez stood in the center of the ballroom, her hands folded neatly in front of her plain cream dress. The chandelier light caught the simple clip holding her dark hair back, and her face, bare of makeup, looked almost too genuine for the glittering crowd. She wasn't what they expected. Not for Julian Blackwood, heir to a corporate empire. Not for this room dripping with wealth and judgment. The party was at the Blackwood family's estate, a sprawling mansion with marble floors and gold-trimmed walls. Every guest was a CEO, a senator, or old money with sharp tongues. Ava didn't flinch as their eyes raked over her. She just stood there holding a glass of untouched champagne, her posture straight but not stiff. Genevieve Blackwood, Julian's mother, swept toward her, her sapphire gown catching the light. She was a woman in her 50s with a face pulled tight by surgery and a smile that never reached her eyes. She stopped in front of Ava, her voice loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "Sweetheart, that dress. It's hardly appropriate. Did you find it in the staff quarters?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. A man in a tailored suit leaned toward his wife, muttering, "She looks like she wandered in from the bus stop." Ava's fingers tightened slightly on her glass, but her face stayed calm. Her silence seemed to irritate Genevieve, who turned to a woman nearby and said, "Imagine my son with someone so ordinary." A woman in a sleek black gown, her pearls gleaming, approached Ava with a pitying smile. She was a distant cousin of the Blackwoods, known for her biting wit. "Oh, darling, you must tell us where you shop. I could use a laugh." The group around her tittered. Ava set her glass down, her movement slow, and looked at the woman. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "I shop where people don't need to buy their confidence." The cousin's smile froze. The laughter resumed, but Ava's eyes held a steady fire unnoticed by the crowd. Julian stood a few feet away, adjusting his cufflinks, his handsome face fixed in a practiced smile. He didn't step forward, didn't say a word to defend her. His eyes flicked to Ava, then away, as if he was embarrassed to be tied to her. The crowd noticed. A woman with diamond earrings leaned in, her voice carrying, "She's clearly after his money. Why else would he pick the help?" Another guest, a balding man with a Rolex, chuckled. "Julian must be slumming it." Ava set her glass down on a passing waiter's tray, her movement slow and deliberate. The insults didn't stop. Marcus Thorne, the Blackwood family's lawyer, sidled up next to her, his slick grin barely hiding his contempt. "Ava, right? If you really loved Julian, you'd have brought something to the table. A name, a connection. Oh, wait. You're just the maid." The crowd laughed again, louder this time. Ava's eyes met his. She tilted her head slightly, her voice soft but clear. "You seem very sure of what I bring to the table." Marcus blinked, caught off guard, but recovered with a smirk. "Oh, honey, I know a gold digger when I see one." A young man, a friend of Julian's, decided to join in. "Hey, Ava, do you even know how to use a salad fork?" he called out, holding up his own as if it were a trophy. The room roared with laughter. Ava turned slowly, her eyes locking onto his. She picked up a fork from the nearest table, twirled it once in her fingers, and set it down with a soft clink. "I know enough to eat without making a scene," she said, her voice so calm it seemed to suck the air out of his bravado. The laughter died down, and he looked away, his cheeks red. Across the room, a woman in a red dress leaned toward her friend. "Look at her shoes. Scuffed. She doesn't belong here. Ava's hand brushed the edge of her small clutch, her fingers pausing there as if grounding herself. She didn't look at Julian, who was now chatting with a group of men, his back to her. The room felt colder, the air thick with judgment. Genevieve circled back, her voice dripping with fake pity. "Dear, you must feel so out of place. Why don't you sit in the corner? Less noticeable." Ava's gaze flicked up, steady and unyielding. "I'm fine where I am," she said, her voice low but firm. An older man, a retired banker with a condescending smirk, decided to take his shot. "You know, girl, you're brave to stand there, but bravery doesn't buy you a seat at this table. You're out of your league." Ava's fingers paused on her clutch, and she turned to face him. She stepped closer, just enough to make him shift uncomfortably. "Funny," she said, her voice soft but cutting. "I always thought leagues were for people too scared to play the real game." The banker's smirk faltered. The party dragged on. A young woman with glossy lips and a cruel smile stepped close. "You know, Ava, you're brave to show up looking like that. Most girls in your position would have at least tried." Ava looked at her, her eyes calm but piercing. "Tried what, exactly?" The question landed like a stone, and the woman faltered. Before she could recover, Genevieve raised her glass, her voice cutting through the chatter. "To my son's future, and a bride who will learn her place." The toast drew jeers, but Ava didn't move. A waiter, young and nervous, tripped slightly as he passed, a tray of drinks wobbling in his hands. A woman draped in furs laughed sharply. "Careful, boy. Don't ruin her dress. It's probably the best thing she owns." Ava reached out, steadying the tray with one hand, her touch gentle but firm. She looked at the woman, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not the dress that matters. It's the person wearing it." The waiter shot her a grateful glance before hurrying away. The woman in furs just scoffed. "She's got a mouth on her, I'll give her that." Later, Genevieve took the stage, her voice booming over a microphone. "Let's talk about the future of the Blackwood family. We have just secured a $500 million deal with Orion Dynamics, run by some mysterious CEO who never shows their face." She paused for applause, her eyes gleaming. "That's the kind of power we bring to this family. Not everyone can keep up." The dig was obvious, and the guests laughed, their eyes darting to Ava. She raised her brows just slightly. "A deal with whom?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise. Marcus jumped in, eager to show off. "Orion Dynamics. The biggest name in strategic investment. You wouldn't know them." Ava's lips curved into a faint, almost invisible smile. She took a sip of her champagne. The crowd missed it entirely, too busy mocking the foolish girl they thought was just a maid. The wedding day came fast. The Blackwood estate was transformed into a spectacle of wealth. White roses lined every path, and a massive tent housed 1,000 guests. Ava stood at the altar, her dress simple but elegant, a soft ivory that hugged her frame without shouting for attention. The priest began the vows, but Genevieve stood up, her face a mask of indignation. "Before my son agrees, tell us. What exactly does a maid bring to the Blackwood family?" The words echoed, and the guests erupted in laughter. "Yeah, what's she bringing to the table?" "A dustpan," another voice added. A young influencer pulled out her phone and snapped a photo. "This is going viral," she said. Caption: "When you try to marry the boss and forget to change out of your uniform." Phones started clicking, capturing Ava's every move. She stood still, her eyes finding the influencers. "Make sure you get my good side," she said, her voice steady. Julian shifted on his feet, his eyes darting between his mother and Ava. "Mother," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Maybe you're right." The betrayal stung, visible in the way Ava's fingers curled into her palms. Genevieve pressed on, her voice triumphant. "This marriage would be a stain on our name." The guests nodded. She's a nobody, one said. Julian deserves better. Ava's eyes turned cold like steel. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. A tech mogul in the crowd chuckled. I bet she's never even seen a boardroom. Probably thinks a merger is something you do on the highway. Ava's hand paused. She turned her head slightly, her eyes locking onto his. I know a bad deal when I see one, she said. The words hit like a dart, and the mogul's chuckle died in his throat. Then she moved. She stepped forward, her heels clicking softly, and took the microphone from the priest. Her voice was calm, deliberate. Thank you for showing me your true faces. This wedding ends here. The tent exploded in gasps. Julian's face went red. How dare you insult me in front of everyone, he shouted. Ava didn't back down. I'm not insulting you, she said, her voice like ice. I'm canceling it. The crowd laughed, thinking she had cracked. She's lost her golden ticket, a woman sneered. Genevieve stepped forward, her voice dripping with venom. No house, no fortune. You think leaving us means anything? You're just a maid. Marcus, standing nearby, smirked. Orion Dynamics is tied to that $500 million deal with Blackwood Group. Without us, she has nothing. Julian joined in, his voice bitter. Without me, you're nothing. The guests piled on. She's just a failure playing proud. Ava's hand slipped into her clutch, her fingers finding her phone. She pressed a button, and the giant screen behind the altar flickered to life. A statement appeared, bold and official. Orion Dynamics terminates the $500 million contract with Blackwood Group due to unethical conduct and profound disrespect. The tent went silent. Marcus Thorne's face drained of color. Genevieve's hand flew to her chest, trembling. Julian collapsed into a chair, his mouth open. The crowd gasped, their whispers frantic. What? She's with Orion Dynamics. Ava stepped forward, her voice even and unshaken. I don't need this family. I am Ava Martinez, the CEO you thought was your maid. The words landed like a hammer, and the room broke apart in chaos. The Blackwood family unraveled. Genevieve fell to her knees, her voice shaking. Forgive us. It was a misunderstanding. Restore the contract. Marcus stepped forward, sweating. We can renegotiate. Just overlook our mistake. Julian grabbed her hand, his voice desperate. I'm sorry. I still love you. Even the guests flipped, their voices syrupy with fake admiration. We've always admired you, one said. Ava pulled her hand free from Julian's grip, her movement slow and final. Her silence said everything. She stepped to the microphone again, her voice steady as stone. Orion Dynamics will transfer the deal to your rival corporation, Harper Dynamics. The words hit like a shockwave. Phones buzzed as news alerts flooded in. Blackwood Group stock was crashing. Guests scrambled to their feet, some slipping out the exits, their faces pale. Headlines were already spreading, bride humiliated, CEO strikes back. Blackwood empire collapses. Julian staggered to his feet, his face twisted with rage. No one will ever truly love you, only your money, he screamed. You'll die alone with no family. Ava's fingers paused on her clutch, but she didn't respond. She simply turned, her heels clicking as she walked toward the exit. Then a man stepped forward from the guest seats. He was tall, with dark hair and a quiet confidence, his suit understated but sharp. The rival CEO, Damian Reed, head of Harper Dynamics. He took Ava's hand, his voice low but clear for all to hear. We didn't just sign a deal. I want to build a real future with you. The tent erupted again, this time with gasps of shock and awe. Ava's eyes softened as she looked at him. Her hand tightened in his. The crowd parted as they walked out together, leaving the Blackwood family behind in the ruins of their own making. The fallout was swift. Genevieve's social circle vanished overnight. Marcus was fired, his name tied to the failed deal. Julian's face was plastered across tabloids, his reputation shredded. The consequences weren't loud or dramatic. They were just real. Ava didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her company grew stronger than ever, her life fuller than anyone could have guessed. She didn't need their approval. Never had. And for everyone who'd ever been looked down on, judged, or silenced, her story was a quiet promise. You are enough. You always were. The fight isn't loud. It's steady, and it's yours.